For you to join us today. Happy New Year. My name is Marina Mayer, Editor-in-Chief of Food Logistics and Supply and Demand Chain Executive. And I'm here with my crew who I've not seen in 2 weeks. I'm so excited. We are reunited. If you want to introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Brielle Jacob. I'm the Associate Editor.
And I am McKenna Morales, and I am the Assistant Editor.
And for those of you that are new to watching us, this is Link Live. This is our weekly, every Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. Central newscast where we bring on industry experts to talk about industry trends impacting the supply chain and logistics industry. But today it's just us, lucky you guys. And today we're going to be talking about 2021 predictions for the supply chain industry, because what better time to talk about that than right after the new year. So before we kind of get started, I wanted to kind of go over some housekeeping items. I have to throw in a plug for myself. Today is my 1-year anniversary of joining Food Logistics. I'm so excited. So thank you everybody for making my first year very memorable. Food Logistics November and December issue, including the winners to our top software and technology providers, is now online at foodlogistics.com. Supply and Demand Chain Executives December issue, including the winners from our Green Supply Chain Award, is also online, scexec.com. And registration is now open for our upcoming SCN Summit, which is scheduled for later this month, covering food safety and pharma safety. And speaking of SCN Summit, I just wanted to recap how fabulous our Future of Supply Chains Week was in December, because it brought over 3,300 registrants for the week, 741 unique leads, and a 53% attendance rate. So that was so fabulous for being our first week-long webcast series. So if you're interested in being a part of our food safety and pharma safety, whether it's a panelist, as a speaker, or as a registrant, just go to foodlogistics.com and scexec.com. Now, predictions. I don't think it's a surprise to anybody that technology is kind of the biggest prediction of 2021. As it kind of took over 2020. What do you think, Brielle? You've written a lot about some of our technologies in the supply chain. What are your thoughts?
So it's no surprise that people are going to be more interested in automation and things that can allow people to be remote because of the virus. So that's obviously on everyone's mind. But I think the number one thing about the future is that it's so unknown right now because of where things are. I mean, every interview I've done, no one could really give a clear answer because what the future is going to look like, because we don't know where the virus stands. The vaccine is coming out now, and the economy is up in the air. So it's really, people don't know if there could be a whole splurge of investment into these automation processes, or people could be holding back because they're super nervous about, where the economy is going to go. So it's really, 2021 is going to be interesting for sure.
Yeah, I agree. And for those, if you go to our editorial calendars, we cover a lot of those technologies more in depth throughout the year, like robotics and Internet of Things. And the impact that technology has had at such a pivotal time when, this virus has upended supply chains, it's displaced employees. I mean, and it's the automation part of that has been able to, for those companies that have implemented it in time, we're able to kind of recover a little bit quicker and still do their jobs and still produce food and pharmaceuticals and everything in a safer, more efficient manner. So it's just, from where I sit, it's been crazy to see how fast-tracked this technology has kind of developed and been deployed. And so that's been super exciting. McKenna, I know from where you sit, you cover a lot of the professional development side, and I consider that to be also a very big trend for 2021 is the continued education. From where you sit, what are some of your thoughts on that?
So I fully believe that we will go into another lockdown. I don't know, but
I'm in Illinois, so we kind of just been in lockdown for a while.
I've been in my own personal lockdown, but I would not be surprised that when the new administration comes in at the end of the month, if that's one of the first things they do is put us on a whole new lockdown, because the UK is in a 6-week lockdown.
Right.
Now. And so that is what I'm predicting. I don't know if it will be as strict or as scary as the first one, But I think because of that, everybody will have to work remote again. And I don't think this will delay companies in hiring new people anymore. I think we've been in this long enough that they see the benefits of virtual working or working from home, because that's what we're doing right now. So we know that people are capable of it. And then especially as more supply chain programs get implemented in universities across the country, it's only going to grow, and companies are only going to grow their confidence in hiring remote workers.
Right. And I think that's so key, and that's a good point that companies may not be hiring as much because, with the implementation of technology that allows them to not have to do that, but also because a lot more people are trying to figure out how to do their jobs better, more remote, smarter, and it's kind of forced these companies to evaluate how they do business. I know our January cover story on Food Logistics covers warehouse automation, and that's one of the big things we're talking about is how are these companies handling their employees as more technology comes into the warehouse. So,
right. So and the supply chain is very fortunate right now because there are many industries where people haven't been able to go back to work and they're permanently laid off, and we're hiring people.
Right. Right. Except there's still a driver shortage.
True.
Which we will cover that later in another link live because we have lots of organizations that are going to come on with us and talk about the driver shortage and kind of how to curtail it. So, or at least try to.
Sorry, do you think that the driver shortage will get worse this year, or do you think it'll get a little bit better because people are looking for jobs?
I think that's a good question. I kind of go back and forth depending on the day. And I think I do that because, there's still that negative, I won't say negative connotation, but there's still that connotation that truck driving is just, it's long hours on the road. It's just truck driving. And when we bring on these trucking associations, whether it be ATRI or ATA or whoever it is that we've brought on in the past, and they talk about, there's more to truck driving than just that. There's all these technologies that help these drivers become safer and do their jobs easier. I think the lockdown was hard on the drivers because it closed down rest stops. It closed down certain roads that couldn't be, fixed or whatever the case is. And when DMVs closed, it kind of prevented those drivers who didn't have updated licenses to be removed from the road. So I think it's kind of like it depends on what happens. If there is another lockdown that happens, I think it kind of depends on that. That's a good question. I'm interested to people watching what your thoughts are. You can comment at any time and we will address it. But that is a very good question. So another time to watch.
That and warehousing, I think, will have like a resurgence this year.
Yeah, a lot of experts are saying because of the virus that people are now scared not to have an essential job. So they're looking for things like driving and warehouse work for an essential job.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of good companies out there. It's not just the associations. It's a lot of these 3PLs. They're really trying to find good drivers. And as their shipments, food service has become a different kind of a shipment player. E-commerce just blew up. So they need drivers. I see our poor FedEx guy. He's in our neighborhood like 4 times a day. And that's never been like that. It's one and done. And he'd be gone. And now I feel like I'm waving to him all the time.
Right. So, I feel so bad for them.
You what?
I feel so bad for them because, well, just think of the holidays and how when the pandemic first started, they said that it was like Black Friday times 3.
Yeah.
The beginning. And so with the holiday season on top of that, it was like 200% growth for every parcel carrier because like I can't remember that was on STCE, but it's on STCE for sure. But they said that you need to think of it this way. If you were ordering packages 2 times a week and up to 4, that's 100% growth. And then your neighbor down the street who never ordered something that is now getting packages 2 times, that's another 2% growth. They work so hard.
I know. It is hard, and I do feel bad when they're kind of buried, but they are essential jobs, and there's tons of essential jobs out there that, with technology have become a little bit easier and safer and more efficient. So hopefully we can get that figured out, and hopefully we don't go on under the lockdown where it kind of upends that a little bit. I know in my notes, I also had sustainability. I know we talked about sustainability a lot last year, and I think a lot of it's because I went into the whole COVID thing thinking sustainability would just be fall through the cracks. And it was like everything opposite. Every single company was like, it does not matter what's going on with this virus. We are going to continue to be sustainable and promote sustainability and have sustainability efforts in place. And I think that's just a true testament to our industry because, regardless of what's going on, they still want to do things for the greater good of the environment. And I think that that's huge. I know, Brielle, you've covered sustainability a lot. We had our sustainability cover story in December. Go.
Sorry, I was frozen. So what I learned doing research for the cover story is that the main thing that happened, so we all thought that there was 2 kind of things that happened. We thought that when everything shut down, we would see, effects of climate change kind of go down a little bit because we weren't on the move as much, all these other things. But then also regulations kind of relax because we didn't want to have that in-person interaction. So people like the FDA and, government agencies that would come on site and do audits, they relaxed their rules a little bit because they wanted to make sure that they had social distancing in place. But then the companies themselves stepped up and they decided, we're not going to slack on sustainability because sustainability is everything. It's not just environmentally friendly practices. It's just keeping your business sustainable for the long term, and environmental practices go into that. Battery operated things are a way to save money in the long run. And then there's plenty of sustainable options that have helped keep things moving in the pandemic. So it's just, there's so many layers to it. There wasn't like a clear picture of exactly what was going to happen with sustainability when the pandemic hit.
Right.
I saw a tweet at the beginning of the pandemic that said that this was directly related to climate change. And I'm not a scientist, so I can't say if that's true or not. But then, because I was like you, Marina, I thought people were just going to kind of kick sustainability to the side this year, but it's just such a big deal. And it will always come back to it that we have to be green, we have to save the earth. And I think about that tweet a lot.
Yeah.
So I have an interesting fact about this that goes with food logistics. So back when the Black Plague was happening, the Black Death, the big one, they actually have seen in historical documents that
the big one.
that
as opposed to the medium-sized one. Sorry, continue. When that happened, climate change stalled for a little bit. So climate change has been going on for years, and it is directly affected by food, actually, because people were so over farming that when the plague happened and so many people died and there was less need for so much food, that it helped. It changed the atmosphere and things in climate change. And I think that's so interesting how all these things are in effect. Something as simple back in the day when there was no technology, no cars. I mean, there's nothing. Farming was enough to affect that. So everything is connected, and I think it's so interesting. And supply chains are
such a huge part of everything about our culture.
Well, remember when lockdown first started and people would do those like feel good posts of like the smog in California has lifted and we can finally see the LA skyline. So like, yeah, it is directed towards each other.
I mean, just fuel emissions alone in the air from less cars on the road. I remember we posted something about that, or maybe we talked about it. I can't remember. Just something as simple as that over a 2 to 3 month period can undo a lot of that damage. And, you know, it's just interesting to see, you know, sustainability continue to be top of mind regardless of what's going on. So that was on my list. The other thing on my list was something to look forward to this year is obviously vaccine distribution. Brielle, you're going to be writing an article for STCE in our March issue on pharmaceutical supply chain. And then obviously we have our pharma supply chain or pharma safety SCN summit topic. But what are some things, preliminary things that you're kind of seeing on your end, kind of tease the article or let us know what's going on?
So I'm working on an article for state of the pharma industry right now, and it's going to be I do give an article because it's just come smack dab in the middle of this vaccine launch, which is interesting because when we had scheduled this story, there was no vaccine. I mean, we work on our schedule a year in advance, so it's pretty mind-blowing that this is happening right now. I already have a podcast out about how blockchain is being used in the vaccine distribution. So that will be, so you can check that out. It's super interesting. There's a way technology is really changing the way these things are being released. So this vaccine launch is way different, obviously, than any other vaccine launched in the past. First of all, it was developed so fast, but that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Welcome to Late Night, everybody. Brielle's dogs like to be included in the conversation.
Both my dogs lifted their heads. They're like, what's going on?
My dogs are fortunately asleep. Usually they hear the dogs. I forgot to introduce the pillow in the beginning. I just now realized because she's covered behind our logo, which look at our fantastic logo, people. Shout out to our art director on that one. Okay, Brielle, sorry, you can continue.
Sorry, my mailman came and I'm usually in the other room, but my internet.
It happens.
On
all of our traditions from 2020 to 2021. I mean, it's been 20 minutes. It lasted so long. I love it. For those of you who have not seen our bloopers reel, make sure you go to facebook.com and scexec.com and check out our bloopers reel that McKenna put together from last year from all of our link lives, because just video interviews in general and Brielle's podcast, because it's definitely a hoot. And yes, I said hoot. Bad mom joke. Okay, continue. I'm talking on now. They're like, what is this? We're talking about 21 predictions. I had the right year, right? 21. Yeah. Okay. State of pharmaceutical supply chain. What else do you have to add? You were on a roll too.
I know. Basically, the way that this vaccine was created is different than vaccines in the past. There's a little debate on that, but I will just say that the technology was already being built before COVID even happened. So they're just building on that technology specific to COVID. But then it's also going to be released and delivered through the supply chain in a new way as well, just because have modern ways of doing things now. So it's just very different than the past. So I know that makes people nervous, but we'll see.
Oh my gosh. Sorry. Wisconsin was in the news because of that.
Yes. Some doctors don't agree with it.
Yeah, but like also shout out to Dolly Parton for helping fund the vaccine.
Yes.
Did you guys see
Oh
that?
yeah.
Did you see the article that was floating around right before the holiday break about how Dippin' Dots is gonna like help distribute the vaccine, or like they're gonna save us all? And people kept on making jokes that they really were the ice cream of the future, but really,
Oh my God.
but really, the article was just talking about the cold chain and that
Right.
Dippin' Dots has that technology.
Right. Well, that was going to be my next thing I was going to add on to Brielle, what Brielle was saying. Like, you know, we cover the cold chain across the board in food and pharma on both publications. And I think it's interesting because people that I've talked to are like, hey, we have the capacity to help move it. We want to get some, you know, not want some skin in the game, but like we can help. And they have the infrastructure in place. They already have the trailers in place, the storage and everything. And I think that will be really cool to watch those two industries kind of converge together to deliver the vaccine. Because some of these food guys are even like, I can just make space, you know? So you have, you know, the produce and your cheese, and then you got your vaccines.
Yeah.
You know? It's a one-stop shop. But I mean, it's really cool to watch. And I think that that's where I sit. You know, I started right before the pandemic, and then the pandemic hit, and I watched the industry kind of evolve into its own. And it's never failed to help each other. And I think that that is the big takeaway from our supply chain industry, because they just continue to step up and say, hey, I'll help. I'll figure it out. I have the infrastructure. It's not what I normally do, but I'll help. So I just think that's kind of cool, and it'd be cool to watch. So keep an eye out for Brielle's article in the March issue of STCE. So I think that's some good predictions. If you those are watching, comment, bring us some predictions, and hopefully we'll be covering them throughout the year, both in print and digitally. So make sure you download our editorial calendars as well. Register for SCN Summit that's coming up. I put the link in the comments. And make sure you download Brielle's Link podcast channel so that you can listen to all of the past year's podcasts, but she has some great themes coming up, monthly themes. What are some things that you're going to be covering? I'm like blanking all of a sudden, even though we just talked about this like 2 hours ago.
Right now, it's Spirits and Alcohol Month. Talking about the logistics of that. Next month will be diversity and equality. And then safety. We got sustainability. We got whole interesting tons of topics coming up.
Perfect. Very, very excited. We're also going to be introducing our upcoming awards next month. I'm spacing on that as well. Let me go to You what?
It's the Top Green Provider Award for Food Logistics, and I don't remember what we renamed the SDCE 100, but we renamed
Top Supply Chain Projects.
Top Supply Chain Projects is also getting announced.
Will be that. So keep an eye out for nominations. That'll be open for submissions starting in February, probably about mid-February. But you can always go to our website and check out the awards pages and get an idea of the actual nomination open and close dates. So you can kind of keep a track of that. And make sure you follow us on all of our social media platforms and keep an eye on us, because we have lots of fun things coming up this year. And hopefully this wonderful video montage of us just laughing is just a preliminary of what's to come. So thank you again, everybody, for joining us, and we'll see you next Wednesday at 11 a.m. Central, Link Live. We'll see you then. And thank you, everybody. Thank you both for your input today.